Madigan, you have the call.
Thank you, Chair. In November last year, I asked whether the ACCC was aware of any examples of engineered wood products that don't reach Australian standards, which have been found on the Australian market, and whether or not they'd specifically been referred to the ACCC. I got the response that the ACCC had received complaints regarding 2 matters, I believe. Have any other matters come to light since then? And in all cases, have there been any investigations, and if so, what were the results of any of these investigations conducted? Have there been any penalties applied, alerts or public statements, and if so, in what form, and if not, why not?
Senator, could you just the very first thing you said in relation to what products? Engineered building products? Was
engineered wood products such as, for instance, form plies.
Sorry?
Like form plies, laminated form plies.
I mean, I'll pass to Nigel Ridgway, who looks after this area. We're about product safety. Building standards are done by other regulators, so we look at things that affect the product safety standards, affect consumers, and we are looking at a lot of those issues at the moment, probably more than we'd like to look at. But in terms of the foundation type building standards, that's really belongs to another.
This is about product safety.
But it has to be, I mean, it depends what...
Mr Sims, if a form ply delaminates on a job and you've got concrete suspended on it, that is a safety issue.
Oh, it's a safety...
If there's formaldehyde in a form ply or a composite timber board, that is a health and safety issue, and I want to know, have you had reports and what are you doing about them, and have you issued fines for non-compliance with the Australian standards?
I'll pass over to Mr Ridgway if I could.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Madigan, Nigel Ridgway, Group General Manager, responsible for compliance and product safety at the ACCC. The ACCC's safe product work involves a range of remedies. One of the largest elements of our product safety regime in Australia is what I'd refer to as the defective goods regime. That is, in the event that a supplier or a regulator identifies a good that they apprehend may lead to serious injury or illness of a consumer, that they then have a mechanism to go about alerting the government to that issue and to take responsible action to remove that product from the marketplace. The ACCC has a number of these recalls, negotiations that occur over a period of time, and in the since our last appearance, there have been one or two electrical products that have been identified as having raised concerns. Those products are primarily regulated by the electrical safety regulators throughout the country.
I'm talking about timber products, Mr Ridgway. That's what I want to know about. Have you specifically investigated any claims of products that don't reach Australian standards?
Well, timber products would have to...
Switches,
I mean, I don't think, subject to Nigel's view, that we've had any reports of mandatory incidents in relation to timber products. Meeting the timber standards, my understanding, that's something the building regulators would look at. It's not our role. Our role would come in if there was injury as a result of those things. I don't think we've had any.
Okay.
Senator,
can I just clarify this now? So, for instance, if we've, I'd like direction as to who enforces compliance with the regulations. For instance, if we have a composite board that's being used for the fabrication of, say, a vanity unit, okay, and I know of a case in Melbourne, not far from Senator Ryan's electorate office, where a product is being used where it has formaldehyde in it. I know of the case where many people working on that site are bleeding from the nose. Now, these people want to know who is it that they go to see to get this situation dealt with, because every time they go to get something done, everybody passes the buck. Now, some people say it's the ACCC, some people say it's somebody else. These people go on this bloody merry-go-round and people's health is being affected.
Not in here, so.
So,
It's not the Queensland wishes.
If I could
Well,
hazard,
they've got a bloody nose.
yep. Senator, I think Mr Ridgway knows who will help out here.
Senator, if I could try to assist, in looking at the regulatory framework in relation to building and construction products, my team has identified that there is, of course, a role carried by state regulators. There's also a role in some circumstances carried by local government in its certification regime. And further, they're in the regime that responds to the Building Code of Australia's framework. There are some private certifiers who have a role as well.
I think that's probably making your point, Senator.
But Senator, if I could clarify earlier, you referred to matters that had come to the attention of the ACCC in relation to form play. They were considered by the ACCC in the context of representations made and whether those representations about compliance with various standards was misleading. The more recent one of those that you've referred to in that question on notice was considered by the ACCC. There were changes made, and indeed any residual issues were addressed, at least in some part, by communications from the trader to customers, but also a referral from the ACCC to the relevant state work safe authority. And I would have thought one of the work safe authorities could well have a strong interest if there is risks in a workplace.
Senator Madigan, I appreciate this is no longer my portfolio, but were you referring to staff or sort of customers in an area when you mentioned that people were ill? Was that workers on a site, for example?
Tradesmen dealing with these products, and not one instance but multiple instances of people bleeding from the nose because of exposure.
And so this was, just to clarify, this was product being used and sold business to business for use in construction and staff falling ill. Could I suggest that, like, to help Senator Madigan, sort of in that environment, because that's different to a sale to a consumer, that the Commission take on notice what courses of action not just a business might have, because purchasing a faulty product or a product was at risk, but also whether or not the staff or potentially future customers, if it was a retail area, for example, might have a series of steps that Senator Madigan could have that would allow something in writing from the ACCC that they can wave at another regulator's face if it wasn't you to say, no, this is what we've been told, so that the buck can't be passed. And I'll endeavour to get back to you on a couple of other matters privately, Senator Madigan, now that you've said that.
Are the ACCC aware of the November 2013 report by the Australian Industry Group, The Quest for a Level Playing Field, the Non-Conformance Product Dilemma, which outlines the safety concerns, for instance, about form play, amongst other products, when they do not conform with Australian standards, and the extensive evidence that the report provides of this? So, Mike, further to that, is the ACCC resourced, or is it in your charter to enforce Australian standards?
My understanding is that Nigel, I was going to say I didn't think it was in terms of building standards.
That's correct. The ACCC does not have authority to enforce Australian standards. Where Australian standards, it has a responsibility where there are, as my colleague Scott Gregson has identified, where there are representations about Australian standards in the supply chain, in the market, in trade or commerce, then the Australian consumer law expects those representations to be correct.
So, look, I'm just going to jump in. So Senator, what we spend a lot of time on is dealing with product safety issues, whether it's chemicals in bed sheets or it's cables in houses. We do, and we are seeing a lot of low-priced imported goods being sold in retail outlets that do concern us from a product safety point of view. We are the product safety regulator. If someone has an injury with a good, they have to report it to us. We get involved in the recalls, and if we feel people aren't adhering to that regime, we can take enforcement action. So we do put a lot of time on all this. The building standards per se are a building regulator's responsibility. But as Senator Ryan said, we'll get back to you. We'll try and be as helpful as we can as to who should be doing what in this area.
So, my last question, can you clarify for me, so you've acknowledged that there's a lot of goods coming into the country, what I refer to as landfill, that are substandard, okay? So you only act on that, you're not proactive, you're just reactive to this product, is that?
Well, we don't, we're
Senator
not...
Conroy made the comment before when we're talking about the broadband that if a company purports to have a service that is 100 units to a consumer and he suggested that it's only 38, that you say that's misleading a consumer, right? There are so many products coming into the country, Mr Sims, that people in good faith are buying, assuming that they meet our standards. So you're saying to me that the ACCC does not go, like it's not proactive in looking at products coming into the country and that they meet what the community's
that's right,
expectations
Senator.
are.
We do not have a role at standing at the border and checking whether goods meet international standards. What we do have a role in is if somebody says...
No, I'm talking about Australian standards.
No, but if someone says our good meets Australian standards and it doesn't, that's misleading conduct. We can take action. If somebody's selling a good that is unsafe, we can take action. And we're very proactive on that. We have testing regimes. We have as I say, a mandatory reporting system where we find out about any injuries with goods. So in terms of consumer product safety, we spend a lot of time on that, Senator.
Would you be able to give me a roadmap so I can give to people, because I've got a multitude of these?
As the Senator, we most certainly will.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.